Hey, another 6 things I've come to realize in my work as a film composer. You will find your tribe. There will always be someone with more money, more work, more luck, more contacts, more friends, but you will gradually build a network or tribe of like-minded artists. There's such a danger, I think, in the musician's mind, a mind that is attuned to seeing and finding patterns in music, and I think that can be translated to the world outside music, and you tend to see patterns and connections and correlations in unhealthy areas, such as comparing yourself to another composer, another musician. You can't change other people. If a producer doesn't want to hire you, if a director doesn't want to work with you, there's nothing you can do about that. Apart from being the best composer you can be and attracting that work that you want.
I want to say to anybody young out there who wants to make music or an artist, the best advice I ever got was success is something that you attract, not something that you try to chase or catch.
Try doing a deep dive into the background of a composer that you admire and aspire to be like. Set up a Google search alert. Whenever they're interviewed, you'll get an alert and you can keep track of their motivations and methodology. I think it's a good way of recalibrating your own internal motivations and inspiration. I think we all need a reminder now and then of what it is we're trying to do and to steer us away from those unhealthy comparisons. I remember seeing this interview with Tilda Swinton at, I think, South by Southwest. And she said something along the lines of, it's important to plant your feet in your own ground, do your own thing, and eventually that ground becomes U-shaped, which is quite esoteric, I guess. Fundamentally, perseverance is the key. Compose before you orchestrate. What I mean by that is, don't be seduced by string samples, orchestral samples, the latest Spitfire audio, string library, flute library, percussion library, all these things, setting up a massive template with every sample library you have ready to go. It's a seductive thing. You just hold down a key and a beautiful string texture comes out and you think, okay, great, that's a start. That's not a start, that's orchestrating. A start is composing music, writing a melody, writing a theme, putting notes together. It could be on a piano, it could be on whatever instrument that has the quickest connection between your fingers and the composing part of your brain. Once you've composed, then you can orchestrate. It may sort of sound flippant, but I think it's a real problem. It's too easy to just start playing around with sounds. And I think there are probably certain genres of music where actually that is the right way to do it. But we're writing music that evokes emotion and a psyche of a character. And it has to be a rock solid piece of music that an entire audience can relate to and can understand and can feel. This relates to something that happened to me once. I was performing with a very famous singer at a very, very famous person's Hollywood wedding. It was the kind of event where almost every A-list Hollywood star was attending, and it was in an amazing place. Try not to give away too many details, but basically the singer I was working with had been offered a financial reward in order to do this, to play at this event. And it was a wedding. So, and you know how weddings go, they're always running late. So we were contracted to start playing at a certain time. And it just so happened, you know, we got to that time and they were still having dinner. So us performing then would be silly. However, the contract said that that was when we were going to start. So the singer I worked with said to the sort of agent who was there in a very loud manner, enforce the contract. And we're going on now, enforce the contract. So the guests had to stop eating in order for us to play. And it was at like one of the biggest Hollywood weddings of the decade. And everyone loved it. But what this relates to in terms of us, normal people, enforcing the contract, enforce your boundaries. If you're engaged to do something, then that's what you're doing. And they will always want more. They will always want some sort of adjustment or an increase of this, that. If they want more, that's fine, they can have more. But you change the terms of the contract to reflect that. And I think it's important to always remember that. It can still be a friendly interaction with, say, a producer or a director, but they're coming from a position of expecting probably to pay you more anyway. This is about enforcing a contractual obligation, and in doing so, protecting your boundaries while also making sure that you're not ruining it for anyone else. Because if you start doing stuff that go beyond your contractual obligations, i.e., you're doing things for free, then you're weakening the collective resolve. And I think this is a problem amongst a lot of composers, and makes it harder and harder to do things. There used to be a union that would do this sort of thing for us and stand up for our rights, and they still do to a certain extent. However, they don't have that sort of power anymore. So it's up to us as individuals. But if we all stick to the plan, then collectively we're stronger. Number 4, this is another quote, and this is something that's been lodged in my brain for literally decades. It's from Tom Hanks, and I remember reading this so long ago, I can't remember where I saw it. However, it goes like this: you are defined by what you say no to. Probably in our general lives, we've all done things which we shouldn't have. Although they were great learning experiences, they have perhaps tainted our past and therefore our future. Sorry, that was a bit heavy, but if we apply this to our work as a composer for film, TV, there are certain jobs which perhaps we do because we need the money, and unfortunately, that residual effect that those jobs have, especially if other people can see it on your IMDb page. If your IMDb page is a list of things which you wish you'd said no to, then that's a real issue. And even though at the time it paid some bills, what has it done to the definition of you as an artist? It's tricky because it all comes down to the decisions you make about how you're going to go about this job as a film composer. Are you going to be a jobbing composer that just does everything and makes regular money, but you could be swapped out and replaced by anybody? Or are you going to be that individual who makes a mark on the world of cinema? Can you imagine a director who you very much admire looking at your IMDb page, seeing certain things and thinking, I'm sorry, but I don't want to work with that composer? You are defined by the things you've said no to. Tom Hanks was right, and I think it's worth remembering that. Number 5, this I learnt from Chad Blake, the mix engineer. It's very simple. When you're working on a piece of music and you're adding plugins, effects, and things like that, if you find, and it doesn't have to be an effect, it could be an instrument, it could be anything. If you find something that sounds amazing, say you add a certain kind of reverb onto something, and you think, wow, this sounds incredible, always dial it back by 20%. Okay, this applies to everything: compression, reverb, vibrato. Just dial things back 20%. And more often than not, you'll come back to it the next day and think, oh yeah, that sounds good. When you don't do the dial back, you come back and listen to it again, you think, oh, that's too wet, that's too much reverb. You know, it just always seems to work out like this. Sum it up in one word. This is my approach when starting work on a new film. I try, even if it's at script stage, to sum up the film in one word, maybe two, but hopefully one word is enough to convey the essence of the film, the narrative, the psychology, the emotions. I think a very good example of this is the film Vertigo by Hitchcock, a film that is about obsession. The one word that would apply to this film is obsession, and the score by Herrmann is literally obsession. It's an obsessive repetition of a short leitmotif, and it just accurately puts across to the viewer a sense of obsession. If you can do the same thing, I think that's amazing. If you can start a film and think, okay, this film is about anxiety, I'm gonna write music that is anxiety. Okay, more often than not, that music will work perfectly for the film. Of course, it's a broad stroke, it's a sledgehammer approach, and you can then refine that and define it more later. But it's a very good starting point. I've previously also made another film about 6 things I've learned as a film composer. Feel free to watch that now. Thanks very much.